Yes, because I just left at 4:30. Hello.
Hi.
So, Julian, we should have one person on Zoom.
How you doing?
Barry, Dunkin,
And Candace.
oh, I'm sorry, and Candace Vasella.
Just finished, yes.
Can you promote them? Thank you.
How are you?
Not ready to
Very well,
play
thanks.
football.
Excited to be back in a room.
Well, you know, I don't think I have officially welcomed you.
Oh, well, gosh, it has been a while, that hasn't. Well, thank you so much. It has been a weird time, but it's nice that we're coming out
Okay,
of
we've
it.
got 2 minutes.
Exactly. I'm so glad.
No, you do. Well, thank you. It's been very fun, and it's been very satisfying to get this show on the road.
I think Parks and Rec,
What I'm doing now.
different
No.
than, most
got
I sent it to her.
Okay, Tower Hill, yep.
The one on the right, just before you.
Yes, it's
Preserved.
it's still, I'm still getting used to.
There's Barry and Sunny
No,
Florida.
usually the 2 weekends I have a planning commission, it's nothing but, and as I said, Carolyn, you know, if I have a 4-hour meeting, I'm spending 4 or 5 hours for each hour typing. And so it's like,
Limit of disturbance.
you know, it's just different.
Yeah.
And it's
Disturbance.
Are you
lovely.
still in that commission?
You don't
No.
This is the only, right.
Yeah, I did it for 20 years, and I
Yeah,
figure that's,
okay. so
Okay.
down to- I-
So,
once I hit 20, I said, it's time to take a step to another direction, and my husband was like, can you know, I'm tired of never seeing you. So I said to Carolyn, I was doing 60 meetings a year.
okay, so it's,
Well, you know, Tom's responsible.
it's equipment parked there, right?
You on the committee initially. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Back in the old days when he and Jack Scholes working away, yeah, taking Blockhouse Pond out of the Stone Age, and making it something pretty.
There's a dumpster, and then look at all this heavy equipment.
When I first
That
took
they're
on
working
the
Okay.
commission for this
Right
one,
up
it was a
next
lot
to the
different than
trees.
it is
And there's
now.
there's
Continues to change, but, yeah.
See, here's the silt fence.
I get to
Right,
be
and
the
they're
senior
on the
member
outside.
now.
Outside of it.
Okay.
It's exciting to be senior.
Oh, well,
What's the senior member mean?
nothing.
She gets paid
I'm
for
the,
it.
since Lou stepped down. I've been
Oh,
on the
you're here the
commission.
longest. Oh, nice.
I'm keeping score.
Bragging rights. Oh, right. Nothing wrong with that. Did you remember the tags? Okay, I have 6:30, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank you. This is Monday, February 28th, 2022. This is the regular monthly meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission, called to order at 6:30. Announcements. We have Judy Jeffers is excused for this evening. We had budget hearings held each Friday in the month of February. The Parks and Rec Commission budget was presented on Friday, February 25th. March 4th is presentation and review of the draft budget with review of capital projects, so you might want to listen to that. On March 11th is the final review and markup, and on March 14th, it will go to council.
You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thanks, Carolyn.
We really appreciate it. 'Cause
Yes, thank you.
I know, especially with mine being new, it was a lot. So,
Well, we
thank you.
had a few new. We had the 2 new beach parks, but we also had parks Great Marsh Park, which didn't previously have a commissioner, and now we're putting some focus on it. So there was a lot of discussion and justification for the budget. So there's still more work to be done, but I think we got a good start. So if you want to listen to those last hearings, please feel free. So if there are no other announcements, we can move into the agenda. I hope you all have had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes from January 24th. Are there any comments or corrections?
I have one.
Okay, Marty?
On page 3, first full paragraph, fourth line, where it says the 4 current members.
Yes.
I believe what I said was for 4 recent members.
Okay.
Take out the word
So
the.
recent.
Take out the word the and change current to recent.
Testing 1, 2. Can you
Yep,
hear me?
We hear you.
Good. I don't hear anybody else.
You can't hear us?
They're not talking to us tonight. We're the outliers.
Oh, okay. At
Can't-
least I can hear.
Candace, can you hear us?
Now I can.
Okay. Barry, can you hear us?
I can now.
Okay,
I couldn't before.
okay.
And can Jackie hear us? That's what I really want to know.
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Excellent.
okay. So we've solved one problem.
So you heard my correction to the minutes, Jackie. Do you have any questions?
No, we didn't get the first few minutes of it just started, your sound just came on.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so Marty has one correction to the minutes. Go ahead.
Okay,
Page 3 of the minutes, the first paragraph, the fourth line, where it says the 4 current members. I believe it should say for 4 recent members. So remove the word the and change current to recent.
okay. Okay, and then were they approved? I didn't hear the motion.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, all right, so it was just the correction.
Right, so
Okay,
I had one comment, and it's on page 2, when we have the beaches, and it says beach 1 and beach 2.
yes,
And I think I don't know if I said beach 1 and beach 2, or if I just said beaches. I don't think I would have said beach 1 or 2. It would have been Savannah Beach and Johnnie Walker Beach, or the beaches.
oh, okay. Do you want me to start putting the heading as Savannah Beach and Johnnie Walker instead of?
I think we
just
can,
one of the two?
I think we can just put the beaches.
Sure.
That would work.
Okay,
And then on page 3, under the update on the Public Art Committee, the last paragraph says Chairman Reeve. It's just missing an S.
oh, okay,
No big deal, but
all right.
anybody else have any corrections or comments? Okay. Is there a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections?
I move we accept the minutes.
Thank you, Rodney. A second?
Second.
Marty, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. So we will go into the Commissioner's Report, item C. And I think what we'll do is just go around the table. And I will start to my left with Harry and Ed, updates on George H.P. Smith Park. Easy for me to say.
We would like to report we haven't done anything.
Oh, okay.
And honestly,
Status quo. That's good. You're gearing up for the busy season.
Well, yeah, physically, nothing in the park. We're working on gathering pricing for disc golf and some of the other things.
The grills, I mean,
The grills and all those things, but
Once
physically, we did no work in the park.
once the
Okay.
budget's finalized, then we'll be able to order things and be on the road.
Okay.
But right now, we're just
Well,
twiddling our thumbs.
this is the time for you guys to relax a little bit because the season's coming, right? Okay, thank you. Ray, Zwannendale Park?
Okay, for us, it was a pretty busy month, February. We waited out the weather to start the pruning process, and Bill Edelman led that whole effort, did a great job. We pruned around the Fisher Martin house. We pulled some plants from the Fisher Martin house and then moved the mulch back on that left-hand side where it's getting into the wood. He also, there's a big holly in the front that he pruned pretty severely, and he wanted everybody to know, it looks terrible now, but it'll look good in June. So he just wanted everybody to be patient.
Pruning is good.
Pardon?
I said pruning is good. It's healthy for the plants.
Yes. At Lewis and Bloom, we have a big cleanup scheduled for Wednesday in the park, but I got a bunch of emails last week that they said that people were in there cleaning it already. So they've done I didn't know who it was. I guess it was the landscaper.
The Distinctive Landscaping. They are on an annual contract, so they do the cleanup and mulching in the spring, and all of the lawn maintenance and weeding, and so the Lewis and Bloom shouldn't have too much to do,
No.
if anything.
We're going to go in there on Wednesday and, just do some weeding and some general cleanup. Very happy to see the budget hearings for Z Park this year, and looking forward to the final budget because, we have a lot to do. There's a lot on the budget that's carried over because of COVID and just other issues that has not been done in the last fiscal year, so we're looking forward to doing that. And if I might, I just want to give an update on Lewis Community Garden while we're here, or should I wait for Great Marsh Park?
Are you filling in for Lou on that as well? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're part of the community garden?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So the community garden is getting ready for its 4th season, and this year we put a new fence up. We self-funded a new fence, which expanded the garden by about 3,000 square feet. But we're also developing a strategic plan for the garden. We're not going to put new beds in right away. We're going to stay with 48 beds as we had last year. We have great demand for it. In fact, there'll be a lottery pull tomorrow for the 4 beds that are open. And we just want to have just everybody have a knowledge of the garden. We're trying to have it be educational. It's an organic garden, so we want to educate the public, and we're going to do monthly events all through the spring and summer to educate anyone who wants to come in to find out about organic gardening, or we're doing a lot of wildlife preservation around the garden. And the last thing is we're going to do a fence grand opening, but not probably until June or so, so we'll let everybody know when that happens.
Okay. Thank you, Ray.
So thanks.
Warren, you want to report on Mary Vessels and 1812?
Yeah. At Mary Vessels, the Lewis and Bloom ladies got in ahead of Patrick Olson and Distinctive Landscaping, did a cleanup the week before last, actually, in Mary Vessels. And unbeknownst to me, they asked Bill Adelman to go in there and do some pruning, and he did some pruning on the holly hedge in the back and kind of created some holes in there, and I think we've got a little problem we're going to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
At 1812 Park, Distinctive Landscaping got in there, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but they dug up all the sedum, the sedum border we had on the slope and all the sedum we had transplanted into the sidewalk bed. Why, I do not know. I have not been able to get up with Patrick. And FYI, it looks like the tulips are going to be early this year.
Okay. So as we discussed earlier today, I will get in touch with Patrick and talk to him about that and see what happened, and we'll have that taken care of. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Rodney, Canalfront Park?
I know that Patrick and Distinctive Landscaping were in doing their spring cleanup. I think it was last week in the park. So that should be taken care of. And the Friends, with respect to the Friends, the only thing I wanted to say was at the last meeting I reported they didn't plan on having any movies this summer. Apparently they've changed their mind. And they are planning for at least 2 movie nights, but I don't know when they are. That'll all come out. soon.
Okay.
That's
Can-
all.
Thank you, Rodney. And Marty, can you report on the tree program?
I've been continuing to do my normal tree tag maintenance, arbor scope updating, light pruning, and inspections. We have 2 tree planting projects, big projects, coming up this year. One of them will be, they're actually both in GHP Smith Park. One of them will be the Council Grove, which will be planted up near the Pollinator Garden at DuPont and Johnson Streets. We intend to apply for a grant. We had a walkthrough with the Delaware Urban Forester, and she approved of the project location. The other one is, we talked about this last meeting, the Roots and Shoots group at the library. It's a youth group, are going to be carrying out a Trees for Jane planting. That's Jane Goodall. It's an international effort to plant a lot of trees to help with the environment. So we worked it out with Harry. There's a place in GHP Smith Park back near Beebe that's wet a lot of the time. It doesn't drain real well, and so we're going to plant trees there. We're selecting trees that do well in that environment, and we're going to purchase small trees that'll be easy for this age group to handle, and it's going to be an Arbor Day event. We're going to have people from the Delaware Urban Forestry Program come and talk to us about how to take care of trees and how to plant them properly. I think it'll be a great event.
I think it'll be wonderful. I'm
So
excited
we're
about
looking
it.
forward to that. Everybody's invited, but just the people from the Roots and Shoots program will be actually doing the planting. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Marty. We're going to continue with our reports with
Stango
Christine
Park?
and
Okay.
Stango Park.
All right. Yes, Janet and I met with Patrick to discuss the landscape design plans for the front of the Margaret H. Rollins Community Center. Some of you may have noticed that half of the plantings in front of the building were removed to access sewer and water lines in order to put in the new restrooms. So half of that landscape planting got removed, and we are in the process of discussing the possibility of a renovation for the entire front of the Margaret H. Rollins Community Center, because it's difficult to match existing plantings with new plantings. So in our discussion with Patrick, it was determined that it would be best to remove all of the plantings and start from scratch. That'll also help us to renovate the irrigation system, as well as a lighting plan for the front of the building. And we're in the process of putting a design together and hopefully presenting that in the next meeting or so. In addition to that, we also discussed the planting bed. As you walked in tonight, in front of this entrance building, there's a small bed that had initially been designed for a tree planting and some ground covers. And it was determined that the bed gets no drainage whatsoever. And in fact, about half of the roof line drains into that bed. So it's basically a bathtub out there. So the original design that had been, I don't know if it was approved by City Council or not, but it was looked at by City Council, and it's not a good design at this point in time. So we're in the process of coming up with perhaps a rain garden design instead, which would be very nice, but all of the water that drains off of this roof and the total impervious area around it gave us a little bit different look at what type of landscaping, what type of plantings we want to put in that bed. So we're looking at that as well. And so that was our discussion with Janet, Patrick, and I. Candace was out of town, wasn't able to attend, but we had discussed the front of the Margaret H. Rollins Community Center landscape design back in December. So this has been something that we've been talking about. So hopefully we'll be able to come up with a presentation during our next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. So as everybody mentioned, Patrick is in the process of his spring cleanup and mulching. And in addition to the contracted work, we've asked him to remove some of the grasses in the LA area, the crepe myrtle, row of crepe myrtles in front of the library. The grasses have started to take over, and particularly in front of the crepe myrtles where they're blocking the crepe, the donor signs. So we're just going in there and kind of removing some of the grasses. And we had gotten a quote from Patrick a year or so ago about putting in some perennials there. And it's pretty expensive to go in there and plant perennials. I mean, we might be able to do it eventually. In the meantime, perhaps Lewis and Bloom would like to look at the area and do some annuals, or not. I know you had talked about it before, but it's a pretty big area to be planting annuals, so I don't know if that's something that Lewis and Bloom would want to consider, but it's pretty bare right now, particularly around the benches. But anyway, at least it's been cleaned up a little bit. Patrick's crew also staked up and pruned all the junipers here in the courtyard, which all fell during a snowstorm. And they were staked and pruned back pretty hard, so hopefully they should recover from that. Also, Arbor Care Tree Company was contracted to air blast the root system around a magnolia tree in Stango Park. And unfortunately, it revealed that the root system is entirely too girdled around the trunk to save the tree. It's so girdled, very thick roots, and even, cutting the roots would kill the tree quicker than it's going to eventually not make it. But anyway, at least we tried to save it and determined that we'll have to eventually remove it. And let's see, what else? We put up our Bluebird boxes in the park a couple weeks ago, so hopefully we'll get some residents. I placed them along the bike trail this year, so we'll see how we do with the Bluebird box program. And lastly, I attended the Parks and Rec Budget Committee meeting, and Janet did, I have to say, Janet did a really professional job, advocating for our parks. It was a very concise presentation, and, we're asking a lot for our parks, but we mentioned that it's been a couple of years since we've been able to do anything, so I thought that it went very well for us, so thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
Yes. And I think that Candace had something that she wanted to add about the electrical, and that was it for Stango Park.
Thanks,
Christina, speaking for Lewis and Bloom, we'll be happy to plant some annuals and maybe
Okay.
some even perennial.
Yes, we want to get together with the
Yes.
new, you have two new people working?
Very
with you?
enthusiastic head patrons. for
Okay,
this.
two new patrons, so we would like to meet with them sometime soon.
Yes. Are you planning to do new landscaping on the right side of the entrance to the Rollins Center also?
Yes,
Both sides?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, we'll hopefully see that plan next month. Yes. but it
Who's,
is-
question, who's doing the design?
I am. Patrick's helping.
So we don't have a professional landscape designer doing it?
No,
We're just kind of doing it on our own?
with Patrick's help, yes.
Christine's quite a professional.
Well, that's good.
Has a degree in everything.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I didn't know she was a landscape designer.
She's been trained at Longwood. It's okay.
It's not that difficult of a design, really. It's very straightforward. We're not really doing anything very elaborate. We do plan,
But you're-
just so you know, we're considering removing the crepe myrtle in front of the building.
But you're re-landscaping the entire front of the entrance to the
That's-
building.
Yeah, that's correct. We can't really do one half of the building without doing the other.
So basically, you're ripping pretty much everything out on that side and redoing the whole thing.
Yes.
And at least half of it was already ripped out.
But half of it's gone anyway.
And
I'm
so
gonna
to
add at this-
balance it,
Yeah,
it
I
would,
gotta add at this point, I think the original design, in my mind, was not created with low-cost maintenance in mind. For instance, we already had, several years ago, had to take out a holly tree that was just too dang big for the location. And you had to prune it multiple times a summer just to keep it looking nice.
Yeah.
So that was taken out a while back. and
Yes.
Step
And the
by step,
flag-
I think it's time to
Yeah.
rethink plantings in terms of not only plants thriving, but not being too hard and expensive to take care of. Yeah.
We're looking at a very simple, very straightforward design, and also allowing for more annuals in front of the building. It's a 5-foot wide bed in front of the building, and if we refurbish the irrigation, it should allow for more plantings for annuals. There's plantings for annuals there now, but I don't think they really do as well as they would if we redo the irrigation. And that was part of the discussion with Patrick last week. But the big news would be removing the existing crepe myrtle in front of the building.
it's very, very close to the building.
It was
and
planted too close to the building to begin
hanging
with,
over
in
the
my
roof.
opinion.
So
Yeah.
if there's any debate about that, that's fine. Just something we put into consideration.
Okay, thanks,
Sad
Christine.
sad to say.
Very
Candace, did you want to add?
Do have an item to add. So we met, Janet and I met about the bollards in front of the library. There's been some electrical issues. One of the bollards had been removed, and it appears from the electrician's due diligence there that some of the wires shorted out part of the system, and so that is being cared for, and we would like to see the timer there so that when the lights are on, they're not on all the time, and for a while there, they weren't on at all, so we're hopeful that that will be remedied fairly soon. And Patrick did clean up around the library, so the shrubs and all the grasses that are surrounding the library were trimmed, so I saw that. And then on Debris Circle, the mulching has commenced, so the big pile of mulch in the library parking lot should be getting smaller. That's what I've got.
It was a big pile. So, just some additional information on that bollard and the situation there. It's, the electrical, I think, is tied to the bollard across from it. And so they would have to dig that up. We'd have to order the new bollard because it's not anywhere stored or anything. So there's a little bit more to it than just ordering the bollard and replacing it. So we can reconnect on that and see how we can get that done. But the electrical work will be a little bit more than I think we anticipated.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kay, would you like to report on the beaches?
Yes, thank you, Janet. So I don't know if anyone was down looking at the beaches, but with these last storms, the rack line was right up to the snow fence. So we had a lot of water up high, but the beaches look good. Even like last Saturday, the beaches were busy. I've never been there by myself, but there were a lot of people there last Saturday, which was nice to see. Sort of waiting for the budget so that we can figure out what we have and what we need to work with. One thing that I was making notes about was leveling the benches that are there, And when the streets department is there doing that, if they could dig out around the snack shack, they would appreciate that. Although I don't think the erosion is as severe as it was last year, because the sand was incredible all around that building, and it doesn't seem to me to be as bad this year, which is good. The one sign I need to work with Ms. Trina Brown Hicks on is the kiosk-style sign about the life of Mr. Walker. It's hard to find facts about Mr. Walker. We've been able to find stories and memories, and I've been doing work, through Ancestry and things like that, trying to find what I can. I know where he's buried. I've found information, say, in the News Journal archives and that kind of thing of his many land sales and things like that. So we need to come up with a real story there to explain. So I need to get working on that.
And you're working with Trina
I
on
will be,
the
yes.
selection?
I need to contact her
Okay.
about that. I wanted to see how the budget went, and then we'll kind of see where we're going. Was contacted today by the new person in charge of Adopt-A-Beach, and he had a list of people who had said they wanted to do the Lewis City beaches, and was anyone still interested, because they're sort of starting with a new slate. And I said I would be happy to do it if no one else was ahead in line. So that would be nice to have that done.
And what does that entail? Is that like the Adopt a Highway program? Are they asking for signage down there as?
I don't think that will be necessary.
Okay.
But it's twice a year. You're supposed to do it before the season starts and after the season, but before the coastal cleanup, which is the third Saturday of September. So sort of right after Labor Day. Though I have to say, people are really good about it all summer long. You see people with trash bags cleaning up and just on their own. People out for a walk early in the morning, picking up trash. So keeping plastic out of the water. So that's excellent. And a couple other things, but that's not really necessary for tonight. It's nice to see there's been a lot more interest in the story of the segregated beaches and the segregated resorts in the area. The cultural preservation and a number of other people have gotten in touch with me about projects that they're doing, kind of putting the whole picture together. People know about Rosedale Beach, and I know when I gotten the Green Book to see if I could find anything about Johnnie Walker, there was discussion of a couple of places in Rehoboth and one in Frankfurt. And so I think it's just awakened a whole, it's a whole new subject for many people. And it's really nice to see that it's being discussed as a cultural phenomenon in the whole county, really, covering the whole county. So that's been nice to see as well. So that's end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Kay. And Barry, last but not least, the report on Great Marsh Park.
Well, we've been busy looking at master plan proposals, and we sent out an RFP to 3 different firms, and we got their proposals back. We've selected one, but we have not notified everybody about our decision. So I'm not going to say which one that we picked. It was one of the ones that we picked was Peroni. No, I just had a. What were the Janet? What are the names of the other ones?
So the three
Green Breeze.
agencies that the proposals were sent to was Foresight in Claymont, Newcastle, Verdantis here in Lewis, and Pannoni in Milton. So each of the proposals has been reviewed. The city has made a selection. However, the notices, the letters just went out today, so the actual agencies that submitted it probably don't have that yet. So at our next meeting, we can announce who received the award to work with the city for the master
And
plan.
they should be starting in March and complete by, I think, November 1. Is that right?
Yes, yep.
Yeah,
by
it's
End of
November 1.
October, early November.
Yeah.
So it's an aggressive timeline, but we need to get it done at this point because the lease is up in 4 years, I think. So.
That's all I have to report on Great Marsh. Do you want me to give my report on public art while I'm speaking?
Yes, please.
Okay, as we discussed at our last meeting, we have 3 different artists that are going to be displaying sculptures in Lewis. One is Letha Wilson. We had selected a site along the trail that didn't, the bike trail that near the library, that did not work out. So we've switched that to Canalfront Park, and Canalfront Park is very excited about this sculpture. It's going to be basically in the almost the same place as the Unbounded. We're going to pour a concrete pad there, and this is the sculpture that's metal, shiny metal with kind of like photographs of like leaves and natural stuff. We showed pictures of all of these at previous meetings. The other one is the Rose DeSanto sculptures. It's 3 tree-like sculptures that we will be anchored with metal plates, and they are going to be in the place that the bottles were in Smith Park last year. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just mixed that up. And I'm sorry. That's Vivian Collins. Vivian Collins is going to be at Smith Park. The Rose DeSanto, which is the photographs that are made into tiles, that's going to cover African American history, where we've gotten photographs from the Historical Society, is going to be in Smith Park also, but it's going to be on the end of Park Road and near to the butterfly garden, or the pollinator garden. So we'd have locations for all 3 artists, and we're excited about the diversity of the artwork that's going to come to Lewis, and hopefully we'll have tours and different activities around celebrating the artwork.
So, Barry, I think you were on the public art, you were at the public art meeting, and I did mention to the committee at that time that there is another project between the Overfalls Foundation, the city, and the public library to do the story walk. So I think they're kind of in the same vicinity as where Letha Wilson's piece is going to go. So it's just something to keep in mind so that there's not, big conflict in where the piece goes. So we'll just have to keep communicating between now and the installation of that piece.
Okay.
Okay.
We certainly will.
Thank you. Any questions from the table for anybody? No? Okay.
Most of these you've already seen. I think we've had up on the screen and everything. So
yes, we have.
It's really a very diverse group of sculptures that I think will be really fun and be well received. If you don't like one, maybe you'll like one of the other ones.
Thank you.
That's all I have to
Do
report.
we have a timeline?
The installations will be in the spring. We don't have exact dates yet.
April and May we're talking about, and I think we have a date on one, but I'm not sure what that is. But we will be certainly be in a close contact with the individual park commissioners as to what the timeline is and what the projected date is. But we'll have that well in advance of installation.
Okay. Because as Marty said too, we have, and I mentioned this at the Public Art Committee, with the grant-funded tree planting that we're doing kind of in that
Right.
area where the monuments are going, we don't, because we'll
We
be
want a
planting.
conflict
Right,
there.
right. So we have it mapped out where the trees are going to go, so when the
Oh, good.
time comes for the installation, Marty and I can, work with the park commissioners and the Public Art Committee to get the exact locations.
So when
And we
do
can
you-
stake all that stuff out just so people know where it is.
Yep.
So how long will the art pieces remain? When will they be removed?
Most of them will be up for 3 months, 3 to 4 months. Takedown dates will vary depending on the artist's resources, and they won't be all taken down at the same time. But basically, they should be up by the middle of May, June, July, August, and then to be removed on or about September 15.
Okay. So there's some overlap for the Council Grove that'll be up near the Pollinator Garden.
What's that?
The Council Grove planting that we intend to be near the Pollinator Garden in GHP Smith Park, that planting we hope to be in early September, early to mid-September. Exact date to be determined, so we'll have to work with you on that, and, but you're not putting anything in the other side near BB, are you?
No.
No, okay.
No.
No problem there.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, any other questions?
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will move to the next item, old business. Item D1 is presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the proposed kayak rack study. Does everybody have an opportunity to look at the draft that I sent out? Okay. Do you have copies, or do we need to pull it up on the screens? Okay.
I think everybody
Julian, can
looked
you,
at it.
thank you, Julian. Julian's gonna pull it up on the screen. So, this item was initially presented, at last month's meeting from, yes, thank you, thanks, Julian. You do that so quickly, I would have struggled over that.
That's because he's younger.
I know, right? It was presented by Councilman Williams to provide an amenity within the city for seasonal storage of kayak racks at various locations. And the commission agreed to conduct a study on that. So I started a study. I sent you all the copies, and we have it up on the screen here. So the first page was just a review of what I could find from various communities, municipalities along, you'll see, kind of along the East Coast. I struggled to find anything actually within the lower part of Delaware. We had 2 towns in Massachusetts, a town in Portland, or in Maine, Portland, Maine, 1 in New York, 1 in Rhode Island, 2 in New Jersey. You'll see that the seasons varied. They were anywhere from May 1st to November 1st, Beverly, Massachusetts has a season, which is the annual calendar year. Portland, Maine was May 1st to November 1st. Oyster Bay, New York, April 1st to November. Rhode Island was April 1st to November. Wildwood, New Jersey, April to October, and then Sea Isle City, New Jersey, May 1st to October 31st. So you can see, you know, I think the kind of the outlier there was Beverly, Massachusetts, but you can get an idea of how the communities kind of identify their season. The fee schedule, anywhere from $100 or $75 for the season to $250. Oyster Bay, New York, I could not find a fee. Sea Isle City reported that they don't have a fee at all. So moving on to the types of vessels that could be stored. Most were canoe, kayak. Well, all were kayak. Two did canoe, kayaks, and stand-up paddle boards. 3 did kayak and dinghy, and 2 did just kayaks. So I think there's some room there for discussion. I don't see a lot of dinghies in Lewis, and I think that the request for the study was primarily for kayaks. And then the permits, how they permitted, it varied. There were several that once you submit your application, if there was room and, you know, one went by a lottery, which we do in the city of Lewis for the seasonal slips at the marina. And then they develop a wait list. So, you know, there's plenty to discuss here just in the fee schedule alone. So before we go on to anything else, are there discussions just on the season and the fee schedule and the types of vessels that should be considered?
Did you get any idea about how many kayaks any of these places were accommodating?
Some had up to 250 slots, and others were, you know, a couple of racks of 8 in various locations. Some municipalities, and I think it may have been Beverly, Massachusetts, but they built their you know, municipal staff built the racks.
Right.
So that would be another consideration in a proposal, you know, whether we're purchasing racks or using city manpower and city staff to build racks, including.
I have seen them built out of just, you know, pressure-treated 4x4s. You bolt together, it's pretty simple, but I don't know how long they last. But
I'm sorry, it was.
They last long enough to find out if people like them or not.
It was East Bay, Rhode Island that built their racks, so.
We built our own at the Lewis Yacht Club, and they've been there for some years now. You know, it's pressure-treated timber. So that works. But then that's kind of a permanent rack. I think one of the questions we need to discuss is whether these are going to be temporary racks or permanent racks. I know DenRec has restrictions on where you can put permanent things within, I think it's the building limit line from the water. But if you're at some of the beaches, which I don't know where the building limit, where the DenRec line is there, but if you stay outside the DenRec line, it may be advantageous to find a home for permanent racks. Because if they're not permanent, the city's going to have to be installing and removing and installing and removing and storing somewhere. Whereas if they are permanent, you don't have to go through all that.
The other factor, though, is you can't launch a kayak in the guarded area. that has to be on either side of the guarded area.
Right, so you,
And
well,
it's confusing to people, because on the busiest day, they will haul out, I've seen someone haul out a sailboat
right,
and think they can launch it
Right.
among hundreds of people, including a
Yeah,
lot of children.
so you manage that kind of thing, you may
Well, right,
put a
but that's
sign.
another thing, the lifeguards have to turn around and be watching
Yep,
this way
sure.
to prevent someone from doing when their focus needs to be this way, rather than what people are.
It seems to me
people
we
don't
should
get.
not, we should not put racks in the guarded areas at all. We don't want to encourage.
It's
that.
confusing.
It's
It's
confusing,
confusing.
and we don't want to encourage it there. If we put them at the beaches at all, it probably should be down near Roosevelt, someplace in there.
So you're saying that we shouldn't have any of these racks on any of the, on Savannah?
Or Johnnie Walker.
Or Johnnie
I
Walker.
don't think so. I think you could have them at the, I think it's worth inquiring, because there's a kayak launch at the boat ramp. So it seems.
That's
like
where, I mean,
that's
that,
a-
to
an
me,
appropriate
seems like,
place to do it, but I don't know the ins and outs of, it's a state-run facility, but I don't know that if we couldn't arrange something there. because
Which
that
boat
makes-
ramp
Boat
are you
ramp are
talking
you
about?
talking about?
The one at the end of Pilot
The
Town?
big boat ramp.
Oh, the one down at Pilot Town.
Yeah.
So
'Cause there's a
there,
kayak launch there.
there is a kayak launch at Canalfront Park.
Right.
And when the proposal came from council for the commission to study that, it said locations that may include, Roosevelt Inlet, Savannah Beach, Johnnie Walker Beach, and the kayak launch at Canalfront Park. So, do we have to do all of those locations? No. Can we pick other locations? Certainly, we can put proposals forward. But I think, you know, that those are the things that we need to discuss so that eventually we can make a recommendation to mayor and council.
it seems to me that we should avoid the swimming areas. We don't want watercraft in those areas. They're not allowed there. So
Well-
why would you even think about putting kayaks, racks anywhere near a swimming area? You're just going to create problems for yourself. So in my mind, if you are going to do it, and I think that really that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. Just because it was presented doesn't mean we need to follow through on it. I mean, we need to make a decision, but
Right.
you know, I think it needs to be discussed, and I think we need to talk about the pluses and the minuses, and why we need to do it if we need to do it at all.
So,
And what we're doing is we're creating a program for us to manage. Well, I say us, it's going to be Janet to manage. It's a new program that's going to involve, you know, signups, liability, maintenance, and so on, and creating rules and regulations and all that. So I think we need to, you know, give some serious consideration when we think about doing this.
so the code is very clear on what's permitted as far as launching kayaks and stand-up paddle boards and canoes and any kind of personal vessels. It's very clear, and it's not permitted during the times that the beach is guarded and the beach is, you know, used by beach goers for swimming and whatnot. So I think that if we're talking about identifying the season, that would kind of dictate that they would not go on Savannah or Johnnie Walker Beach. And I would suggest, as we move forward with this, that we take small bites of the elephant and just perhaps put together a pilot program, keep it minimal, see how it works, see how it taxes staff in managing and monitoring it, whether maintenance, will be having to, if it's temporary, if it's a temporary structure, taking that off the location at the end of the season and having to store it. But I think, this could get very, very big, and I would suggest that we put together a pilot project for this to present to council.
Well, I think you also have to think about the aesthetics. I mean, in Canalfront Park, personally, I'm not so sure I want to see, a rack of, multicolored kayaks right at the waterfront. And somebody could put their kayak there, and that's their place to store their kayak, because they don't have any place in their yard or their garage to store it. So that's where they're going to store it for the season. And then, they use it 3 times a year. I mean, do we want that? I mean, that's just something to think about. How does putting a kayak, a rack in Canalfront Park, which is sort of our jewel of a park, how does that affect what it looks like and the aesthetics of Canalfront Park? Granted, there is a launch there, but do we want to look at, a rack of 15 kayaks sitting there? I don't know.
Any comments?
And the other thing to think of is, how high is the need? Are there?
Well, and
15
I think that a pilot would tell us how big the need is, and the usage that it would get. Because I don't know. This came, it was raised that there were constituents that were approaching members of council. So it could be a handful of people, and once we do it, we could get 100 applications. We just don't know. That's why
Or less than that, we have no
And when
idea.
you do a
Right.
pilot, then people are going to expect it to continue. They think it's a program. So it's kind of hard to do a pilot when you're involving the community. I mean, we did a pilot with Matt with his beach stuff, but that's easy to say, hey, it didn't work out, we're not going to do it. But once you create the pilot, it's like, well, what do you mean? I like the kayak, leaving my kayak there. Well, you're not going to do it now, whatever. So, I mean, those are things to think about, and I'm not giving my opinion one way or the other, but I think there's an awful lot of things to think about before we make a decision.
Well, here's one thing I would say is the beaches are generally well-attended. And I mean, all of the Lewis residential, Roosevelt, and all the way down. But in the evenings, last winter, not the winter we're currently in, I think we had 5 benches destroyed in the night, and those benches are serious, those wooden benches. People tried to destroy them, and they destroyed them overnight, like one at a time, over quite a period. So I would say to people, if we do a pilot of a rack of 8, say, someplace, people have to be willing to show up to use it and find it's gone or it's kindling, that somebody has vandalized it. And kayaks can be expensive, and so I think if people are willing to understand this, because a boat ramp might be heavily used at 3 o'clock in the morning, but there also could be shenanigans, and you could have your property damaged, and people have to understand that.
So we'd have to say people have to assume the risk.
Yes.
Because we don't want
I
the
think
city to be
so.
insuring the kayaks.
I think so, or,
Yeah.
right, because I think people, when the city of Lewis does something, as the city of Lewis, people assume a certain standard of due diligence and style is well thought out, this is a good idea, and then to show up and it's gone, you know, you don't want us to say we can guarantee everybody's behavior 100% of the time.
So down
So, in a place that might be empty for a little while and people are drinking and do something stupid to somebody else's property.
But doesn't Matt keep kayaks out overnight down at Roosevelt Inlet during the season? Have they been ever vandalized, do we know?
I can't say
I
that they
can't
have or
speak to that.
haven't.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
We have at the yacht club, we used to, before DENREC asked us not to, we put racks on the beach and stored members' kayaks there, and we would periodically lose one.
You have them in storage now, though, don't you?
Pardon me?
You have them in storage now.
We brought them over the dune onto the property, and that's where we store them. Now, DENREC still lets us put racks up on the beach, just at the edge of the dune, and that's where our sailing fleet is stored during the season, and then it all, including the racks, gets pulled off the beach and stored back on the property, on the clubhouse side of the dunes.
Are they secure in any way?
Pardon me?
Are they secure in any way?
Oh, yeah, they're all tied down because of the wind.
Mhm.
Is the first reason, and once they're on the property, they're watched over all the time, but, you know, we do ask people to secure them and lock them down, and as I say, when they were on the beach, we had problems with it. Now, the other thing that we've done, that DENREC let us do, is the pathway up from the public road up to the top of the dune, where it's cleared on the side and there isn't vegetation, they have agreed to let us put racks there. And seasonally, things get stored there. There's plenty of room, there's a mat to walk over the dune on to protect it and to make the walking easier. And so, you know, that suggests, although the town residents might be against it, if there are some large areas where you do cross the dune to get to the bay at various streets, if there's public space there, you could put a rack.
How about the liability aspect of it? Is it on the owners?
For us, it is. It's the club's liability, sure. It's covered.
It's covered?
We are, because we store all our boats and all our equipment, and we're insured for all of that, and that's why we make sure these racks are buried in the ground, and when they're loaded with boats, the wind's not going to lift them up and carry them away.
So they're permanently?
The racks are permanent, yeah.
Thank you.
Except what's on the dune, those we pull off. So it's just finding a way to accommodate, you know, what our membership is looking for within our little area. And we don't own the beach, but beach belongs to everybody. And I don't know what down at the end, what's his name?
Roosevelt Inlet?
Yeah.
Quest?
Yeah, Quest. They store their things there overnight, for sure. There's somebody there all the time during the day. I don't know, they must lock them all up
They're
during
locked.
the night to secure them. But I would remind you, that's a major swimming spot.
It is.
So you've got, and it is for the yacht club. We have the public there in large numbers and members, and boats are being put in and out all the time. And I'm not aware that we've had any accidents recently or anything. People are very mindful. You know, in the club, just people are very mindful, and we have sailing instructors and the sailing director who are in charge of that, so they manage it, gets managed.
Different ballgame.
Yeah.
Well, if we're having a pilot program for the Lewis line, and this year, I mean, I think we could certainly present, here are things the city is trying out. Don't know if it's going to work, and we'll give it a whirl, and then have a discussion afterwards, what worked and what didn't. And everybody just has to understand, a trial period is a trial period. And if it's a good idea, we keep going. If it was too fraught with problems, then I think we know we should.
I share Barry's concern about putting racks in Canalfront Park. I fear it would be unsightly, and I fear that the more popular it would be, the more unsightly it would be. You could, you know, if you had enough people sign up for it, you could just fill large spaces with racks of kayaks, and to me, that would not fit the tone and the current view of Canalfront Park. As far as what racks to buy, I don't know. Personally, I would like to see what our maintenance department thinks, because if they have to move them back and forth, install them, and then remove them per den rack, then that would be one set of considerations. The fact that they'll be subjected to salt air all the time, that's another set of considerations. So I'd like to know what they have to say about it. As far as fees, in my opinion, any fee should cover all the costs. This should not be something, this is gonna be, no matter what we do, it'll be a limited number of the public that will partake, just inherently. So the fee should cover the cost of the racks, the cost of the installation and removal if that's needed, the cost of administering the whole program, the lottery or whatever else we use, the cost of oversight, and something for the use of acknowledging they're using public spaces for personal use. So that's my opinion. It shouldn't be.
Are you including liability in that?
Well, I would say we'd have to make it very clear they're assuming the risk, that things happen overnight, and they're assuming the risk, and, you know, you'd have guidance on, they could put certain kinds of locks and chains and whatever on it, but that doesn't guarantee anything.
At the yacht club, Rodney, do the kayak owners supply their own locks?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about the paper streets on Lewis Beach, residential? Would that be an appropriate place to put a rack of 8 in a couple of places?
I'm not sure that would be very helpful.
Well, it's closer than, if the question was, if you could ride your bike to it, chain your bike to the rack, and then take your rack across the street and over the dune.
Having walked over those
take
dunes
your-
multiple times to get to the beach, just with my lawn chair, the idea of getting a kayak over it, yeah, I don't think people would do that on a regular basis.
I mean, I have mobility issues and I can do it. I'm just saying, that would be a place where it would be somewhat protected, it would be close to the target destination. If this is because people have trouble getting their cars down where they want to launch, they would be launching in an area north of the guarded beaches, but it would be close. I don't know. It's just an option. It's not one of these more high visibility places, but it would get the kayaks where they are intended
Yeah,
to go.
and I'm not sure if the issue is that people are having difficulty driving to the location that they want to launch from. I think it was proposed as an amenity for people. And I think that's another determination that this committee has to make. So is it for anybody? Is it for residents of the city of Lewis? And I'll go back to the Canalfront Park Marina and the way that the lottery is run. Preference, and you know, there's 19 slips, preference is given to city of Lewis residents before.
Well, when this was brought up, it was City of Lewis residents in
Okay,
mind.
so that needs to be made clear, but I can't say that the impetus for the proposal is that people are having difficulty driving down there with their kayak on the roof of their car.
That was how I understood it.
Okay.
And that's why, because there would also be nothing to stop someone, a homeowner who rents out his home from getting a slot in the lottery, putting a kayak there, and then having that for guests as an amenity for a rental home. So,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that would be okay too, I would assume.
Well, I think that's for the committee to discuss. Harry?
I agree with Kay that you can drag a plastic kayak over the dunes without any problem at all. If you're dragging it through the sand, I have them, I've dragged them, I'm an old person, and it's not that difficult. But My biggest concern is we're talking about liability. Sure, the person who put the kayak on is responsible for their kayak, but if somebody walks into one of our frames in the middle of the night because it's not a lighted area, and gets hurt, the liability is going to be on the city. The structure itself has to be insured by the city, and the harm that it could cause.
Okay.
The dune area between Johnnie Walker Beach and the ferry terminal is loaded with kayaks, even today, scattered throughout that area all year. It's a low erosion area. I think if we're going to look at anywhere on the beach, you know, we can get DENREC's approval, that would be, in my opinion, being
You mean between the
an
two
avid
beaches?
kayaker myself.
You mean between the two beaches? There are none
No,
there.
go east to the ferry terminal. You got Pilot Point. and,
Right.
Between Johnnie Walker Beach and the ferry terminal. That dune area, that Savannah dune area, it's relatively flat, is loaded with kayaks, even today.
That's a Denrec beach?
All the beaches in Delaware,
Yeah.
Denrec beaches, yeah.
Well,
And they're just
it's,
strewn throughout that whole area, all the time.
are they in the dune?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so,
Always.
so that's still, it's Lewis Beach,
Yes,
but the dune is under the jurisdiction of DENREC.
right. But if we're going to do it anywhere, I think anywhere on the beach, that's the only potentially viable area. It doesn't erode, and
So the
we could get maybe permission, and maybe that would encourage people to store their kayaks in a more friendly way than they are right now, because they're there all year.
So the issue that I see with that, I think, is, so that's Pilot Point and Port Louis.
Right.
Is that much like Cape Shores, or I don't know, Cape Shores are private roads. Are the roads in those two communities private roads? And if so, where would people
Access.
park
It's
for?
not, they'd have to use the parking lots,
Well,
our public parking
I
lots.
think at Port Louis, the parking is for each individual unit.
Yeah, but I'm
There's-
just talking to Johnnie Walker Beach. They would have to use the beach parking and walk.
And
down
walk
to where your
down.
kayak is. All we're trying to save them is from throwing it in the back of the car or on a truck. If that's what we're trying to do, that's as close as the water you're gonna get. I have a kayak trailer. That's how I get mine around.
But I could see people, though, not parking at Johnnie Walker and walking down and saying, just going into these communities and parking.
Oh, granted, but if our goal is to try to make some amenity of storage of kayaks to ease these kayakers so they don't have to do it, I think that's the only potential viable beach option.
I don't think we should ever encourage anybody to get into a dune.
Well, they're there now.
Nobody's talking
No,
about it.
that's
I
not-
agree, but that's not, I
And I'm
can't
not
control
talking
that.
about
I
that.
can't control that neighborhood or what they choose to do. But, I mean, we already have a hard time keeping people out of the dunes we have. It's just, it's a bad habit to, it's a disrespectful habit to get into. And I also, I haven't driven into Port Louis for a while. I'll drive in there and look at parking, because you have to be able to park at Cape Shores. There is some parking, because the crossovers, they can't prevent you from using from crossing. Right, but I don't know where you park. But can you park? Is there,
They'd have to
okay,
park on the private roads.
okay.
Right. So,
Put in there many times.
yeah, so that is also part of Lewis Beach. There are public crossovers.
Right,
The streets are private.
for Cape Shores, and I need to check on the other two.
I,
need to
well,
check. I'm guessing.
I can't say that they are, but I know that the parking there is limited, and
Yes.
I think that people will, if you say park at Johnnie Walker, let's be honest, people want convenience, right? Maybe they could take the Lewis line down, I don't know. But people want convenience, and, which is why we're having this discussion, right? So they don't have to throw their kayak up on their car and take it down, and then at the end of the day, throw it back up there and take it down at home. So I just think it's human nature, you go to the shortest point, right? And you get the most convenience out of an opportunity. Any other suggestions, ideas?
Is this something we need a public workshop on to gauge people's wishes? I don't know, just a question.
Well, I don't, I'm feeling like we don't have enough information to make a decision. We don't know how big an issue it is. Are we creating an issue that we don't really have? And we could do that either by discussion in this group or by a public hearing. I think that the members.
It sounds like we need to maybe do a little bit more research and have a couple people look at it a little more closely and maybe make a more specific recommendation.
Do we know where the people who made this request wanted to launch?
No,
No.
I have no idea.
I mean, see,
Well, that's why I
we're
think
like,
we need that information. I mean, if we decide to put a rack where Ed suggests that they may not like that location, maybe they were thinking they wanted to put it at.
There was no specific location. It was
So would you
just
think they'd be happy
it was a matter
anywhere?
of finding out whether or not it was something we could do.
Well, it's certainly, from Janet's research, we could certainly, I think, charge whatever it would take to cover the cost of a pilot effort. But I think you're right, we need to
Well,
know
I think
what
what-
experience they want.
I think what Marty was suggesting is that the fee structure should reflect covering the cost of the racks and maintenance. So in the packet, and these are just samples that I pulled off the internet, to give the commission an idea of, price ranges that we're looking at, and the size of these racks. Now, these all appear to be temporary. Could be temporary.
I think we have to decide, do we want to do it? And if so, where do we do it? And what's the best place to do it? But I don't think this whole group can make that decision without further research or checking things out. I almost think that we need, 3 or 4 people to kind of answer some of these questions and then present a more unified recommendation or
Do you feel
tell
like
the
you've
commission
gotten
what they found out, because we're all, we're putting racks all over the place. There's been a lot of suggestions, but
Well, and does east of Maui allow you to lease a little space?
there you go.
Just asking.
No, because
That's
they
good
use
idea.
their parking lot
They have
for overflow parking.
Well, but they've
So-
got
Oh, do
lots
they?
they've got lots of kayaks and paddle boards outside the building during the season.
Right.
Do they rent?
That's what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Is that what they do?
That's what I was asking, if they would rent space. I mean, they certainly rent out, the equipment, but is that a space where the city could,
Who knows?
just asking.
Yeah, I don't know that that's what we want to get into with a
Private
private
business.
business.
Got it.
Carolyn, you had
I'm sitting here trying to think of your next steps, actually, Janet. Do you feel that you have done the amount of research you think necessary to make a decision on this?
I'm sorry.
I don't see it being viable. I don't. It practically viable for, and how much bigger could it get if we did a pilot? I think we're so limited. These racks take a lot of space. I mean, 11, 12-foot kayaks, you're only going to get so many, and we're so restricted by den rack and by sea level rise and everything else. I honestly, being a kayaker, I know what it's like. I just don't see it viable for what we're possibly accomplish. And if it was successful with 8 kayaks, how much bigger could we get? Not much bigger.
And I think too, this body has some responsibility to maintain intended use of the parks and what the parks were developed for. When Canalfront Park was developed, there's a group of individuals, residents in the community that are taking care of that park and are very vested in it. So if we were looking at possibly doing this at Canalfront Park, I think there would be, some other lively discussion outside of this group. So, are there any comments to Ed's?
I think
I mean, I don't want to be,
we have to be the gatekeepers of our assigned projects. The other night, I was at Savannah Beach, and a guy had driven his brand-new pickup truck onto the beach, and he was photographing it at all angles, looking, I guess like a commercial in his mind. So you really have to kind of get into the mind of the public, and really, I think we all need to act as gatekeepers, because it's hard to believe what people will do. And I think we already have a lot on our plates.
So is this something that the commission feels we should not pursue?
I didn't want to be overly simplistic, but the start of this was that some constituents asked for an amenity. I would like to know how many constituents are asking for it.
Nobody asked for this. This was, if I may.
Okay, no, that's fine.
It was just brought to our attention that there were folks within the city that had kayaks. There's a gentleman I see many times pulling it down on, I don't know what it is, to go to the beach. So because they inquired, we said, well, let's just put it out and see. So there wasn't any specific other than that.
So the question I would like answered is, based on what the fee would be, how many people would be willing to pay that fee to put it on a rack? I, for one, would not put my kayak on a rack and leave it out overnight, even if I had to take it down off my car every day. That's just how I would feel. So I think many kayakers would feel that way.
It's a security aspect of it.
From the security aspect of it, and, some kayaks are pretty expensive.
Well, and Harry, you had some experience up in New Jersey, and it was proposed for the residents, if I remember correctly, and the residents weren't using it, right? Because the visitors were using it?
It was a different circumstance. In our back bay in Avalon, there was a natural place to launch. And it just so happened there were 3 empty lots that belonged to the city. And no one regulated that area, and people would just leave their kayaks and sailboats, and they'd chain them to the fence, the 3-post fence. And so some of the neighbors complained that it was unsightly. It was actually very colorful and very unsightly. And some of it, I was a photographer back then, and I enjoyed taking pictures of the sailboats that had been left and forgotten and had rotted completely out in that area. So it was a very colorful area. Well, the city wanted to clean it up, and it was decided to build racks. The city had a complete tool shop where they could weld and they ended up doing some beautiful stainless steel kayak racks. And they started out with, I think, probably enough for 60. And people were chaining their kayaks to the posts of the kayak racks. People were going out with their kayaks, and when they came back, their spot was gone.
taken, yeah.
So the second year, the city had to enforce, and they had put numbers on every rack, and you had to, if you were a resident, you could register 2 weeks before someone who was out of town. And the fee was minimal. It was very inclusive, not at all exclusive. So you didn't pay a prohibitive amount of money. It was it was, all the space was there. There wasn't any thinking that had to be done about location. And it, like I said, it was a natural place to launch from. So everything worked out really in a very positive sense back there. And that was the one and done. The last time I was over there, they had 300 kayaks in racks there. It was off the ground, it was neat and clean, it was tidy.
Right.
And
Well,
there was a
and I
rule
don't-
about when you could put them in and when they must be out.
Right. So,
I have a question for Ed. When you launch your kayak there, do you haul it down there on your car and launch it, or?
I have a 4-rack kayak trailer. I can haul 4 kayaks at one time with my
Okay.
trailer, which I can then move my trailer, and I also have beach wheels that I attach to my kayak.
Okay, but then you haul your kayaks out when you're done for the day?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think.
strap-on wheels.
What I'm hearing is, and I'm sitting here looking at an aerial, the view of the whole waterfront of Lewis, and I understand if you say, we don't think it's a bad idea, however, we don't think it should occur where we have people swimming, large groups of people swimming. That seems to make sense. Okay, so that excludes the public beaches, right? The guarded beaches. It also suggests that we exclude down at the canal end, where we already have a facility, and we also have, with a contractor, but we also have a lot of people in the water there, and a very busy inlet. One of the concerns I would have at Canalfront Park is that there's a lot of boat traffic in there. And if this is going to increase kayak traffic around some big boats coming and going, and not everybody's local, the big boats come through there to go up to the city dock and so on and so forth. Is that a problem? Could we be encouraging too much kayak traffic in a place where it could become dangerous? I'm not aware of any problems that we've had or incidents, but we have to be, if you're gonna do this, I mean, is it worth doing it for 12 kayaks on a rack? Not really. Because then it lends a certain, a limited exclusivity to a few people, and I'm not so sure we want to get in that business either. Just because they're willing to, can afford $200 or whatever. So I like the idea of accommodating a need, but I don't see how we can do it effectively, fairly, and safely.
Well, one of the beach rules that's already been, it's an accepted rule, it's on our city website, is no overnight storage of personal items. So,
Right. Well, we would be changing that rule.
well, right, and then it's the
Well,
thin
but
edge of the wedge, and
you'd
then
al-
we're.
yeah, and you'd also be changing code because there's no launching.
Right.
So,
Well,
I think I hear, does anybody want to make a motion regarding this study?
what is the motion? To deny it or to table it or to just, I mean, what's the appropriate motion? Anybody have any? I don't know.
Well,
I'll give it a try. I'd like to make a motion that after much discussion and some research, we found that it was not viable for us as a city to take on a kayak storage project at this time.
Second.
okay. All in favor? Aye. All right,
Aye.
thank you. Thank you, Ed. That was very well said. So moving on, continuing on old business, item D2, we have presentation, discussion, and possible action on the draft mission statement for George H.P. Smith Park. This was discussed briefly at our January monthly meeting. So, Julian, if you could bring that up for us, thanks. I think this will be a shorter discussion.
I was reading this, I think this language conforms with what's in the park on the sign, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I disagree with that. It doesn't completely conform with it.
This part that says native flora and fauna.
It also includes wetland.
Wetland?
In the
So that's
signage.
missing from this statement, you mean?
On the signage, it includes wetland.
Right,
It
gotcha.
does?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a picture of it
Okay.
Nikki?
somewhere.
I mean, yeah, I'm amenable to amend that to include that. We didn't, I wasn't trying to make that exclusive. Were you-
I just think that they should be consistent, that the
Yes,
mission statement
absolutely,
be
yeah.
consistent with the signage.
No, I agree.
And-
This was just an attempt to wrap around the Blockhouse Pond mission statement and make it a more inclusive for the whole park. That was our goal.
Do we have the exact wording of the current signs?
I thought I took a picture
I
and.
can find a picture of it.
Can't
Well, I
find
saw
it.
these words and that's what made
How
it.
long ago did you take that picture,
I
Christine?
don't know. A lot of pictures. The George H.B. Smith Park at Blockhouse Pond, a restored wetland forest area to support native Delaware flora and fauna. And that's on the existing
No,
Stango
no
Park
argument.
sign.
You say a restored
Restored.
wetlands?
Restored
A
wetland.
restored
The problem is
wetland.
it's not really a restored wetland. That's my problem with that sign.
Well, then
That's
no one
not
restored
really
anything.
factual.
There's no,
No, at one time it was a wetland.
Yeah, but it's not a
Before
restored
74,
wetland.
it was-
Restored wetland is something that wasn't a wetland and you put it back to be a wetland. What they did is take away the wetland and made it a pond. That's what they did.
Right,
So
and
it's
there's
not
actually two signs that say that, so.
Well, I know, so the signs are wrong, and that's my problem. They're
Chris,
scientifically
Chris,
wrong.
Chris,
I'm
would
not gonna
you-
ask you to tear them down, but
Would you slowly read it again? please?
I just, a restored wetland, I'm sorry, I just left the.
No, but whatever it is, it should be
It should be
consistent.
My point is it
So,
should be
yeah.
consistent. You can argue whether
Well,
it's a
right
restored
after this.
wetland,
So
but it
I-
should be
I-
consistent.
is the way she has restored
Yeah.
wetlands. Right after home.
And
It's
it's
not
on,
really a
it,
wetland.
It's not.
The pond is not a wetland.
No.
It used to be a wetland.
Yeah, it's a pond.
the signage,
A wetland is a very specific.
Chris,
yes.
can you
The
gonna
sign,
read
it
for us,
says,
please?
a restored wetland / forest area to support native Delaware flora and fauna.
I'm not gonna argue with the sign. I'm going to agree that it would be nice to stay consistent. The sign needs to be repaired. That sign is literally so faded, you don't even see.
Oh, no,
No,
this is the,
this is the park entrance
this is the
sign.
park entrance sign. Well, both signs say it, but this is the actual park
That's,
entrance.
see, I took a picture.
Across the street from my house.
I took a picture of
Right.
the old one, not the new.
And you're
Oh.
right, Harry, that does need to be,
But both of them
Restored.
say the same thing,
Okay, well,
yeah.
so I have no argument with including that, to amend that. I think that would, to me, the words are fine. If we could adjust that to read that way. Can you trust me to do that?
Well, yeah, I
To,
just think
to,
that,
what's the, to take the word wetland out?
Now,
It's too late because we just bought a new sign.
Because we just what?
it's in the
Just
signage.
put the new sign to.
Because it's not really a wetland.
it used to be a wetland, and they took away the
It
wetland
doesn't,
and made it a pond.
doesn't matter, a wetland is a legal term, and,
Yes, I
and once
know,
you
it's
have a
not a
wetland, you have certain restrictions and setbacks and zones and everything that goes around it where you can't disturb and you can't do anything.
You can't,
So I
right.
wouldn't even touch that word.
That's exactly right. So I'm concerned with using the word wetlands for multiple purposes. Because if it's legally a wetland, then there's a whole lot of things we couldn't do there without getting approval from Army Corps and
Exactly
all
right,
kinds of people.
exactly right. It's a pond, beautiful pond.
In 1975, DENREC came in and took a wetlands and dug a pond.
Yeah. They destroyed the wetland.
And they took the wetlands out entirely. The effect was to, and this is what our mission statement as we read, our mission is to preserve the blockhouse pond, and to provide a home for native flora and fauna.
Yes.
The pond needs preserving. This is what Ed and I have discovered over the past couple of years. If we don't start preserving the pond and the flora that grows around it, there won't be much of a.
You'll get a wetland again.
I think this mission statement.
That's how you get wetlands.
That's how you get wetlands.
The mission,
As long as those springs keep flowing, and as long as the water keeps running over into the pond, it'll stay a pond. But the walls of that pond are collapsing.
Right, right.
And there's one area of the path, there's only 5 feet between the path and the pond.
Sure.
So our concern, Ed and my concern, is to preserve Blockhouse Pond, not to regress into a wetlands
Right.
or a woodland, because it's not a woodland either.
Yeah, you are preserving and appropriately managing a pond, period. That's what you're doing.
Yes. It's the sign that's the problem.
It's the sign that's the problem.
I concur. Spray painted out.
And that sign was just put up.
It's fairly new, yeah.
I think this mission statement reflects what's actually there and what we're actually trying to do
Yep.
right now. So,
Well, and the second part, while providing a city park setting designed for the enjoyment of all, I think we want to make, that's one of our goals, is to make that park a city park. Active. An active city park.
You mean more active than it is right now?
Yes. Well, we have barbecue grills that we've allowed to rust away.
Oh, that's,
We've got horseshoes that we've allowed to sink into the ground, to disappear. We were even thinking about putting up a couple disc golf holes back behind where the sculpture was, over in that corner where not interfere with anyone. Yeah, not interfere with anybody walking the.
Right, three holes.
yeah, no, that's far enough away.
Yeah.
That's-
But we wanted to, that's a perfect area for picnicking. And if we had something back there for the kids to play,
To draw people back.
then we thought, okay, because that's probably our best lawn that we have in the whole park. We didn't do it that way, but that's the way it worked out. And so we just thought it would be nice to kind of make this a city park. I mean, we already have the farmer's market, we already have yoga, we have the playground, a newly renovated playground.
The pavilion's coming.
Well, and we have the old pavilion.
We have the
where
other one, yep.
There's still a lot of people gather over there. So I just would like to make it more people-friendly too.
Well, I think people go there for one purpose and then discover other things that they can do there.
What's that purpose?
Well, they might go there for
Just to be,
farmer's market and then just go,
Okay.
oh, look, we can come
Right.
and do this. I didn't know that.
well, this
there
person
used
goes
to
every
be-
day and I walk the dog, so
Right.
Yeah.
it's an
And there
everyday occurrence.
There
for
used
me.
to be a guy who lived nearby who was pretty much a professional horseshoe thrower, who was there all the time. So, I mean, there are lots of different people who go there for lots of different reasons. And if you have questions about the wetlands part, you could ask the person who did all that work, and that was Tom Noble, my husband.
Yeah,
Oh.
he also planted the cypress. He and that other person who's over in the corner.
But you could always ask him, because he's a wetland scientist,
This is
so
when-
if you
this
have
is when
wetlands
Chris was
questions.
11 years old, Because you can see how tall they are.
Yes.
And she planted those
They're
trees
putting up
back.
knees now.
They are actually putting up knees.
But he's a wetland scientist, so if you have questions about it,
Oh, is it?
that's, yeah.
We've used your husband to walk around and give us a tour of the native plants before too. When Lauren and I were
Mhm.
the commissioners. So that was our introduction, was meeting your husband.
Yeah, but I'm sure he would be glad to, go through any of it,
Well,
because,
we appreciate that.
That's what we're talking
But,
about. No.
No, we're up here.
so, back to mission statement.
All right. So is there any further discussion, or is there a motion?
I move that we approve this mission statement as written.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Okay, under our last item, E1, under new business, presentation, discussion, and possible action on proposed colors and materials for the beach welcome signs for the newly renamed Savannah Beach and Johnnie Walker Beach. So we have a couple of things to show, and they're just proposed. Open for discussion. So do you want to talk about locations, Kay, or do you just want to look at the colors and?
oh, well, okay, yeah, I know we'll keep it brief because it's getting late.
Okay.
This is my fabulous map of what I'm thinking. After much discussion about, and thought about signs, the thought was a few well-designed, well-placed signs is what's ideal. We want to have a welcome to the beach at each of the beaches. We want to have directional signs at each beach saying there's where the other one is. And on the back of the welcome sign, we want to have a thanks for visiting sign. Right now, the main sign says metered parking in 3-foot-high letters. So we want it to be friendly and identifying. At each bathhouse, we want to have something, some of the major beach rules, and we want to use the theme, enjoy the beach responsibly, because the beach can have 2,000, 3,000 people on it, and if everybody follows the rules, it's fine. It's very doable. So we just wanted to list some of the main sticking points. Canopies only outside the guarded areas is probably the big one. Social distancing has certainly made beach going better than ever. Playing music only through headphones would be really nice because people bring huge speakers and share. No smoking, head-in parking only. And I thought gathering these in one place would prevent us from having lots of small signs, which is what we have now, is lots of piecemeal signs. And the thought was having all the signs toward the meters, because everyone's gonna go to a meter and then leave. But I think if we have a rules sign at each bathhouse, that's probably more effective and less cluttery. For the color scheme, I wanted to propose matching this sign, the white edge, the blue, the city logo, and the welcome, because most people are going to be driving and looking, and they need something bright, and we thought it looked marine, it looked pretty and crisp. And if we use the aluminum signs that look like street signs, they'll last, they won't fade as fast as others. They'll be pretty sturdy in the environment and the wind. And I think will be a nice, bright and shiny, kind of proud look to them. And rather than, the metered parking was just always this sort of sad, just a very emotionally unappealing thing. So this is the main idea that we're thinking of. One question I have, and I don't know what anyone's opinion is, what about also having signs in Spanish? I didn't know how people felt about that.
Having signs where?
In Spanish.
Well,
Do
don't
we have
on
many
the other side.
Hispanics use the beach?
Sunday afternoon especially.
Yeah,
It's a
a
very
lot of
popular
Hispanics-
time.
A lot of Hispanics use the beach.
Weekends and Sunday afternoons. It's very popular. We often have a Spanish-speaking lifeguard, which is very helpful.
Oh, that's nice.
So it's just the thought, maybe if not this year, maybe next year, after consultation with the lifeguards about what really works. It's just something to put out there.
So, but one thing that I will say, that is a significant effort on part of the National Parks and Recreation Association is inclusion, equity, and accessibility in parks. So adding, Spanish language signs would certainly meet that goal, and I think would reflect very well on the city. Obviously, another cost, so, to your point, it might be something that we'd have to, because this is the first year that the parks
Right.
have a budget, or the
Yes.
beaches have a budget.
Yes.
So, I do think that, that is important, not only at the beaches, but, everywhere, for inclusivity and equity. The other thing that I will just suggest for consideration, when we're discussing the rules of the beach, keeping in mind that the lifeguards have to essentially enforce those rules.
Yes.
And they are forever chasing down beachgoers who bring their dogs to the beach during the time frames that it's prohibited. So they're not going to be able to enforce social distancing. The beaches just, draw crowds. That's what beaches do.
Right.
I think people that enjoyed the beach during COVID probably enjoyed that social distancing down at the beach, but the beach blankets are going to get closer together, and I don't see us enforcing that.
Got it.
The other is playing music only through headphones, and I think that that's just one other thing that takes the lifeguards out of their chairs, chasing dogs and chasing down stereo speakers. So, while I think we can hope and pray that people, just like on the bike trail, would use proper etiquette, I'm not sure that that's something that we can enforce or have the lifeguards enforce. So just some things to think about going forward. But
I think that makes good sense. I know that they are challenged. It's like, well, where is that written?
yes.
So if they have a place that they can direct, say, a belligerent beachgoer, that's very helpful. Because right now, we sort of have like the double-decker,
Right.
do not,
Well,
list.
and it's, the issue is primarily the canopies and the dogs. And I would hate to give the lifeguards something else that they need to walk a person back up to the beach house and say, here's the sign. So and how can it be enforced? They need to have eyes on the water and watching the swimmers.
Yeah.
And so just something to, for further consideration and thought.
Maybe speak to Alicia, the head lifeguard, about biggest problems that she encounters that it would help to have things enumerated.
Right. I also think that the more that you put on a sign, the less effective that
Yes.
sign becomes.
Yes.
So I think maybe the signs can be reworded to be more friendly and don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, this is prohibited. But I would be cautious of adding anything to it.
Right.
Because,
It loses effectiveness.
it does. It does.
So keep it simple and effective.
So I think that just getting feedback from the commissioners about the sign color, and if that is,
I
mean, it's-
personally love the idea of using the same basic design as this Welcome to Lewis sign. I think it helps with reducing sign clutter and making things consistent and easy to read, because people will see this sign as they come in, and it adds to the overall branding, I guess you'd say. I like it.
Any other comments? So is there a motion to accept the color scheme with the City of Lewis emblem as part of the welcome sign for Savannah Beach and Johnnie Walker Beach?
I so move.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Is there a second? Harry, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second?
Thank you, Ed and Rodney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:20 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you. I forget the hell. Well, thank you for backing me up on that.
Yes, may I ask a question?
Yes.